Welcome to the Blue Mind Podcast, a vision to transform the lives of 1 billion men. We explore various topics related to male identity, and we invite people here to discuss important issues that affect men in today's society.
Get straight into it. The topic of conversation is, what is the modern man struggling with most right now? So, Ed, great to see you. Would you like to say hi quickly?
Yes, hi, Mark.
I know that you did say hi, and then I interrupted you.
I'm just going to close the door. One sec. Hi. Hello, anyone that's watching. Hi, Mum.
Hi, Mum,
Hi,
and our
kids.
53 subscribers, which we're also grateful for, by the way.
Yeah, we are grateful for 53 subscribers, absolutely. Yeah. So hello, everyone. Yes, looking forward to this. How are you?
Yeah, all is well. All is well. Let's get
Cool.
straight into it then, Ed. So,
yeah.
Ed, what, in your opinion, based on your experience and your observation over the last 6 weeks of 2024, what do you feel are the three main areas of life, or three topics that the modern man is struggling with or finding a challenge right now?
I'm going to go for one, which I've actually had 2 or 3 examples of it. One, in fact, this morning, one at the weekend, and one last week. The ability of people sick, or not sick, SIC, the ability of people, men in this instance, or inability to be transparent with feelings. And again, it's a very much documented, very well spoken about thing that masculinity struggling with honesty. And the 3 examples I've had are all situations where men have been struggling with feelings of shame, failure, guilt over past events, are simply unable to say, I'm struggling, I'm full of shame, I'm full of guilt, whatever those feelings are, unable to share that to therapists, to loved ones, to seek genuine support and accept that they are struggling. And so the conclusion I've got is, if you are in that position, if you are struggling with your mental health, being overwhelmed, if you're whatever you're facing, and it's not a positive situation, simply find someone who you trust, professional, someone you know, your mum, your dad, your wife, whatever, it doesn't matter, someone you trust, and say to them, hey, I'm struggling at the moment, and just learn to be comfortable saying those words, and it will change the way you look at your life, in my experience. That's my first one, Mark.
Great advice, Ed. What I heard there was empty out, right? Authenticity. We talk about this topic an awful lot on this show and in our content. A man's ability to be vulnerable, to be authentic. It feels like you might have looked at my list, actually, because my first one was authenticity in the relationship, which is a nuance.
Well, let's go to you, Mark. What do you want to talk? Well, expand on that then with the relationship.
So, this
is not wine, by the way. This is Ribena, just to qualify.
In this particular one, authenticity in the relationship, I am a very curious person based on the experiences I've had and the observations from speaking to many, many men. And the big one that comes up for me is, how come I feel like I can't be myself in my relationship? And this is probably a much bigger topic for a show. So we'll do a whole episode on this, because I genuinely believe this is absolutely massive. But and it's similar to what you touched on. It's this idea that you can't, or you feel, or you think that you can't show that other person the true version of yourself, the real you, because of fear. You touched on shame there. You don't feel safe, whether that's because of a past experience with that individual or somebody else, but you feel like if you were to be vulnerable, you'd be judged or criticized, etc. So what I see an awful lot of is that men tend to suppress their emotions. So that would be my biggest one for me. If
Nice.
If you're listening to this and you feel that like that is something that you are finding very difficult, comment below, because we'd love to speak to you about it. We have a number of tools that would help you in that situation as well, completely free. We'll happily send them to you. Authenticity in the relationship, a man's ability to be his real self in a not just day-to-day life, but specifically in an intimate relationship.
Great.
What's number 2 for you then, Ed?
Well, second one that came to mind with regard to what is a general pattern that a general behavior that men struggle with. And I think I'm going to go for something that perhaps impacts more middle-aged or men of a certain age. And that's a feeling maybe that there's more to it. Maybe a feeling of being a bit bored, a bit stuck, a feeling of not quite feeling that, this I could have done better, maybe. I think it's quite common, perhaps more in sort of, once you've had kids. We talked about it with Joe last week. And the feeling of, again, it's resonated with a couple of conversations I've had. Again, I'm not saying it's every man, but I think there's that feeling of, I'm not quite where I thought I would be. I'm not quite good enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not whatever. This feeling of inadequacy. And I generally feel there's a bit of sort of feeling with a lot of guys that maybe there's something to do with modern society and social media and how men are defined and women are defined, and men should be either Andrew Tate figures or super vulnerable emotional types, and everyone's telling you how to behave, and you kind of feel, well, gosh, I need to have a bigger car and a bigger house, and I'm not quite the guy I thought I'd be, and that's my observation. Maybe it's the same for women. I certainly have feelings of could have been in a different place sometimes. And I think when I get those feelings, and if you are struggling, if there is an output to this, if you are struggling with not feeling that life has quite turned out how you wanted it, maybe you feel you've got low self-esteem and even feel a bit of a failure. And my experience was that will manifest itself into disruptive emotions, where it might come through as anger. It might sit with you deep inside your sort of psychology as that not being good enough. It generally leads to quite disruptive emotions, and it can come out in lots of different ways, and it could come out in self-sabotage. So if you are feeling a bit sort of listless, a bit sort of this is the ball a bit, I think my advice, if there is any, would be to take some time on your own, speak to your partner, take a day or a couple of days, go and write down your achievements, write down who loves you, write down what's positive, write down what you believe your legacy is, write down what you think is of value to you, whether that's relationships or work, and think about the rest of your life and what you hope to get out of it, and be grateful for a lot of it, but actually really ground yourself in the knowledge that a lot of people feel like this. You're not alone in the thinking that sometimes we don't feel life is all that. It's perfectly fine to sometimes, have doubts. And, once you've got a clearer idea about what it is you want to get from the rest of your life, you can then start to put things into place, whether it be mental, physical health, emotional health, relationships, improvements you need to make across your life, and have a real sort of structured focus around the things that you want to get out of the rest of your life. And just to finish, I think a lot of the frustration for me, and I think talking to other people, is because you're perhaps not doing the things that you want to be doing, right? Whether that for different reasons, and that could be work, it could be how you spend the weekends, blah blah blah. It might be where you live and how you live your life. Starts with knowing what you think you want. What about you, Mark? Number 2, unless you've got any comments on that.
Well, I love what you were saying, because one, again, it felt like you were looking at my list.
Maybe I am. Maybe
promise.
I'm looking at. Maybe the camera's watching you.
I promise that we didn't plan this. My second is disruptive emotions.
Oh wow.
Disruptive emotions. So it feels. So what I heard there, Ed, was that you're talking about a sense of feeling unfulfilled, right? Whether that's in your relationship, whether that's in your career, whether that's your health. And I really liked what you said about it being common. It is a very common feeling to most men over the age of 35, maybe even younger, especially in 40s and
Yeah.
50s.
Yeah.
And you gave some brilliant advice there. I would, on top of that, I would go deep on creating a vision for yourself, a vision for your future. We talk about that a lot. It's one of the habits of highly successful people, in terms of begin with the end in mind. So if you can create that sort of vision for yourself, you'll very quickly see how you operate on a daily basis that's in line with that vision. And going back to it being a common feeling, most people are stuck in maybe, right? Most
Mm.
people are stuck in maybe, and when you feel like you've missed out on something, when you feel like you're not where you need to be, take some peace in that where you think you should be is merely an illusion. It doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
absolutely.
It
Expectations.
uh, spot on. It doesn't exist. The
Mm.
place where this is coming from two people, right? That I'll not speak on your behalf, but if I
Do,
had
Mark, do.
but if I had stayed married, right, I would have stayed in a 9 to 5 job in sales. No idea what sort of level I'd been. I was progressing very, very slowly, and I would be probably in a slightly bigger house, already had a nice car, would be going on the holidays, etc., etc., etc. And I would now be feeling that sense of unfulfillment, right? In terms of, and it's important that I'm honest, I still get those thoughts, even now, and I'm doing things I absolutely love, right?
Yeah.
I run a functional fitness business for kids. We're disrupting PE in the UK. We delivered functional fitness, health related fitness for kids to over 480 kids the other day at a primary school. And I love it.
Wow.
I love seeing kids
Mm.
getting after it in an environment where they're not being judged, where it's not about winning or losing, it's about effort. And the reward is doing something that you didn't think that you could do. So that for me is very fulfilling. But to anyone listening, it's very, very common. Take Ed's advice on board and think, create some awareness around a vision for your future. You might hear that word thrown around an awful lot, but it is so important.
Yeah.
So
Great,
important.
great ad, Mark. And also, on from that, the expectations you had of yourself when you were younger, even a few years ago, and wait, it's a fallacy. And ultimately, the expectations we have of ourselves are often built by other people,
Correct. Yeah, spot
not.
on. Really important, by the
So
way.
think about what really matters to you, and it can be very small things. It doesn't have to be life changing. So, Mark, number three, back to you. Did you have a third one?
So yes, I did have a third. I did have a third one, and I based this on the feedback that I'm receiving in our coaching calls at the moment. So, just to revisit quickly the three that I did have, it was authenticity in the relationship. So, whether that be that you can actually be authentic about that you want to leave the relationship. We do speak to men that are vulnerable, that feel like and have felt like for a long time that they want to exit their marriages, but feel like they can't because they're locked in financially, the children, etc. Very complex situation. The second one, disruptive emotions. So a man's inability to not respond to being triggered, right? We talk a lot about being triggered, and that once you're triggered, you then have a choice in terms of how you respond. And more often than not, the man is allowing themselves to be triggered by anger, by jealousy, by shame, all these disruptive emotions. So the third one, in terms of letting go, this one seems to be coming up more and more, but the difficulty, whether the and this is if your departure point is that you've recently left either a marriage or a relationship and you're experiencing some heartache. Currently working with someone that he's done an amazing job on himself, right? Amazing job on himself. He's lost over 20 kilograms. He's investing in himself. He's reading every day. He feels like he's gained a stronger relationship with his kids. He's managed to reduce those disruptive emotions. Yet there's still this sense of, I miss her, right? I miss her. And that is, again, very common. And
Mm,
people ask me, "Oh, what do you do in that situation? What did you do in that situation?" And the answer is that there is no answer, right?
mm,
Because for me, letting go takes time.
mm,
Letting go, once you understand who you are and your identity and where you're going, it becomes much easier to let go because you're no longer attached to an identity that you previously had, that
mm,
husband that was married to that individual, right?
mm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense? It's this
it
sense
does.
of it's actually what you're letting go of, right?
It's an identity and an expectation, right?
It's a previous identity of yourself. You're not actually letting, I believe, based on my experience and what I've seen, the observations, that you are letting go of an old identity. You're not actually letting go of that person. But the people that think they need to let go of somebody else is when they
Mm.
get stuck and they enter this negative loop.
Yeah. Is there anything advice you could offer people who are stuck, maybe wishing for reconciliation or missing someone, struggling with heartbreak after divorce?
I'm a massive believer in everything happens for a reason. And if imagine this, you break up with somebody and you spend a considerable amount of time on yourself. Your First your body, change the mind. We talk about that an awful lot. You improve your health, you start to become more successful at work, you start to understand yourself, you start to manage your emotions, you practice observing your thoughts and your feelings and where they come from. If you go on that journey and you progress, and the person that you think that you need to let go of doesn't see that, right? And doesn't want to be with that better version of you, you were never meant to be together in the first place.
Yeah.
That
Great
for
advice.
that for me reinforces the fact that this is everything starts from the inside out. Prioritize yourself and
Yeah.
watch what happens.
Yeah.
That will help you let go.
Yeah.
And shifting the idea that thinking that you need to let go of somebody, it's not you need to let go of a previous identity that you
I
had,
agree.
which is hard, right? Which is super hard,
It
Ed.
is.
You know that.
It is, and there is a reason why people stop communicating effectively, and we know that whilst people don't want to believe it, there's usually reasons why people can't function in healthy relationships
Mm.
and communicative relationships, and there's a reason why they break down. So, embracing the fact that it's Christians here, I'm going to admit him in. I'm just going to quickly, before I do, say that my third one, so we can wrap this up because we have another guest. Um, and I'm going to admit him, and we're gonna. There he is. Should be coming online. The third one I had, well, I think he's coming in. This is actually another guest we've got coming in. He's a soccer player up in Scotland. Was about sex and porn, and very
Mm.
quickly, my third thing that men struggle with is being open and transparent with their use of porn and the talking about sex with their partners.
Mm.
It's we could do months and months of talking on, but I really want to normalize a conversation around men's use of porn. Um, the mainly in my mind and healthy elements to it and the secrecy around it, and actually not sharing that with your partner. So I'm sure Christian's just arrived and thinking, what are these two guys talking
What are these guys talking about?
about?
What what we'll do
We'll do
quickly there
another.
then, Ed.
Yeah,
Yeah, what we'll do
sorry.
quickly, because that's a massive topic. So what we'll do, we'll quickly wrap this one up. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Christian is here. He's going to be our guest in another show, which we're super excited to bring you. If you do enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, share, and follow the Blue Mind Approach on Instagram as well. Okay. Thanks,
Great.
Ed. Thanks a
Bye
lot
for
for that.
now.
Bye.
Great.